Welcome to the Toku Portal podcast. And with me here today, I have,
Rye.
King?
and I'm Zero. And today we're talking about Kamen Rider Ex-Aid, episode 39.
Last episode, Parada and Graphite had run away after Kronos beat them up. Now they're in a forest somewhere, and Kronos appears again to challenge them, wanting to take out Parado. He uses his possibility to freeze time, but Graphite isn't infected. Isn't. I can't believe I wrote down infected. Isn't affected, thanks to the power of Game Deus cultivating within him. But Kronos still manages to send Graphite flying away with just one kick. Poppy and Emu run by the area where Graphite lands because someone spotted them earlier and called it in. Paradox tries fighting Kronos, but can't stand up to him even when he isn't using paws. This is a pretty interesting way to kick off the episode. Because in the past it implied that Kronos wasn't really strong enough to handle fighting without his pause ability. But here it's kind of being last week we kind of got a little taste of like, no, he can still fight if he uses power-ups, and now here he's not even using power-ups. So it's a weird continuity error that I'm not sure what's going on with it.
Just to add off on the very beginning with Hiro and Taiga, I kind of liked the little back and forth there. It's nice to see a continuation on that. I like that they're adding in Gemdis affecting Graphite more so now, because so far all we've seen is that he's not able to hold himself up very well anymore, and he's starting to look more and more infected, kind of ironic. But yeah, I like that. And I think what's happening with that little continuity error is on Palad's half, because what they don't really touch on until now in this episode is that Palad sort of has a mentality that affects him in more ways than one. Like, he seems mature in that he can lead the Bugsters, but he's got the mentality of a child. Let's not forget, because before all this started, he didn't care about death. It was the farthest thing from his mind, and now he's terrified of dying. And I think battling Kronos really brought that to the surface, because he's trembling half the time. He can't really focus or see straight. Half the fight, he feels like he's suffering from drowning. I think that what happened was basically he was terrified enough that Kronos was able to take advantage of that and have the upper hand combat-wise. But it was still an amazing fight.
Yeah, fair enough. It could also be that, like, Cronus has been in so many fights, he's just getting better over time. Plus, like, he could just be, mastering his system, because when he first henshin, he was just using, like, the ability. Like, he wasn't doing the rider stuff. He was just like, okay, this Gashat lets me pause time, and therefore I win. And so now he's realized, like, yeah, that's not really working. So maybe, he did a little bit of training. I doubt it. But he's probably just getting better at using the damn thing.
I would agree with Zero because, yeah, Parado's mental state is clearly not good right now, but that doesn't explain why Kronos one-kicked Graphite away, which he had never even done anything close to that before. So yeah, the idea that, like, oh, he's just getting used to being in combat now, I can go with that.
Fair enough.
Let's see here. Ex-Aid comes in and saves Paradox. Kronos reveals that he has infected Nico with the Game Deus strain of Gain Syndrome, meaning Game Deus needs to be defeated for her to be cured. And if you don't remember, in order to make Game Deus appear, Paradox and Graphite are the last two Bugsters that need to be defeated to do that. Kronos promises to give them the perfect knockout clear token if they defeat Paradox, and he gives Ex-Aid the Tokimeki Crisis Clear token as upfront payment, since they couldn't get that one when Kronos defeated Lovelica. Kronos teleports away. Emu and Peridot exchange a few words, wherein Peridot tries putting on a brave face, but he is actually freaking out. Yeah, he has not been okay since he saw Lovelica die and saw that, yeah, Bugsters can just straight up permanently die, and it has done nothing but get worse.
That the truth. um, I like that Kronos is still feeling like a threat, because in every friggin' episode since he was released from prison, he's found a way to screw everybody over in some way, shape, or form. Be it through convincing Hiro to join him, be it for having Kiria, or just be it through using his powers with paws and everything. He has found a way to screw with them every step of the way. This is just further proof that even though you can get past his one major power, he still finds a way to be a threat. And putting them at an impasse like this, he knows either way he's gonna win. He gets rid of the closest person to clearing the game, but he has to worry about Ex-Aid, or he gets one step closer to beating Ex-Aid, and still, we know he's not going to hold up his end of the deal. I mean, promising Palad's trophy in the end isn't going to get us anywhere near, because we still have to beat Graphite. Not to mention, he wins every damn time. So I like that they were able to keep that. And Palad, oh god. I knew that he was starting to freak out a little bit more, but I honestly wasn't expecting this much, because it seriously looked like he finally snapped a mental cord in more ways than one. And shout out to the actor, because that was absolutely amazing work on his half.
Yeah, good acting, but it's one of those things where it's like this could be potentially super annoying as the episode goes on. It all depends on what happens next episode, because the whole thing of like, oh no, Kronos infected Nico, we have to do what he does. I'm like, what bullshit? Like, that's such a like, oh we have only one option because this is the only road laid out in front of us. I'm like, first of all, a Kamen Rider would find a different way, and second of all, like, that's not the only option, because like we beat Kronos, we beat all of this. Like, okay, freaking we get the Master Gashad, and that's been shown that like that can just override any Bugster and like reset them so it cures a patient. We end Kamen Rider Chronicle, which takes out like Peridot's freaking death squad thing that he's doing, and like it also takes out, and it also revives like all the people who've died, because we needed Kronos' Gashad. So like thinking that we have to do what Kronos says is such bullshit, especially because he's a lying piece of shit. And like, even if you do what he says, like, he'll double cross you anyway. Like, there's no, like, if you do what he says, there's no leverage, because like your most powerful player is out of the game, and then he could just kill everyone anyway. It's potentially really stupid, but like it all depends on what happens next episode.
Yeah, those are good points from both sides. You have to admit that ever since Kronos showed up, this arc has been a bit of a mess, because he's just not letting anyone do anything, and every time they come up with a plan to stop him, there's something that gets in the way.
Yes, but that just proves how good a villain he can be when he wants to be.
Oh, please. He's not a good villain. He's just overpowered and annoying. Like, he's not menacing. He's just annoying.
What was Dan until Paradox and the level 50s came along?
Dan killed people, and he was playing the long game, he wasn't trying to do this.
So's
As
his
for
dad. He's playing the long game too.
I know, but Dan wasn't trying to be menacing. He was just trying to accumulate power. Whereas like the point is Dan wasn't the final villain of the show. And for a final villain, for somebody with this much power, you should feel menace like, oh shit. Uh
All
like
right, fair
what are you
enough.
gonna do when like this guy shows up and it's got okay, what are you gonna do when this guy shows up and he's got so much power and all this? And it's like, you know, you should tremble a little bit, like be fearful for the writers. Where it's like, yeah, he's a threat to the writers, but like he's not scary. He's just an asshole. Because like everything he does is like one, you can either overcome it with a different plan, or two, it's just overpowered bullshit and it's really boring because you can't fight that. And it's like that's just lazy writing. So that's why it kind of feels like a mess. It's not
Yeah.
like yeah, like the thing is like he doesn't feel like a final villain. Like he's not good enough to be this show's final villain. That's what I feel like. Like he's not up to that level.
All right. At CR, Nico's condition is the worst they've seen for any patient with game syndrome. The effects of game deus, it seems. Um, Emu goes to check in on her, and she actually apologizes to him for holding a grudge against him for that Tekken tournament 6 years ago. She also admits that she is actually scared. Emu says he doesn't mind that she held a grudge against him, and that he will get her smile back. Elsewhere, Pardo begins freaking out on Graphite and demanding his Buggle Driver, vowing to defeat Kronos by himself, even after Graphite unquestionably said, "Oh, you want to go get revenge on him? I'll help you." Not sure what Pardo's plan was here, though. Any thoughts from you guys?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure what the Bubble Drivers thing plan was. I'm hoping we get something about that next week. I'm assuming they'll probably touch on it at least once, hopefully. Pallid, like I said, I really think he's snapped in more ways than one. This being the fact that he does not seem to care anymore. Like, before all this, he would have defended Graphite without a second thought. But now I really think his fear's clouding his judgment, basically, because he's going all out. It doesn't matter on who. He's pretty much a scared beast backed in a corner at this point. And the thing with Nico, I did like, love her or hate her, I think she really showed, albeit small, but some clarity, let's call it, because the whole time we've known her, all she wanted to do was get back at him for something that he barely even remembered and wasn't his fault. So the fact that she's finally showing some clarity toward his situation and they're able to connect in more ways than one, like through fear and through humiliation, I think is a really nice touch for her. And M, just as a teaser to his motivation in this scene, I think was really, really good. I think this was a good scene for what was to come.
Yeah, like really good acting from Nico. And then M for his motivation. I was thinking he was gonna say the lines that he heard from like the doctor that saved him. Like, you know, um, don't worry, I'm going like I promised to save you and stuff. I'm like, oh, I wanted to hear that. But close enough, you know. He said it in his own way, which is, you know, I'll get your smile back. So I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Um, as for like, yeah, Emu doing it, like I can see that he's like motivated and stuff, but like it's nice that Nico like got it off her chest, but it also shows that like she's super scared. She's just like I don't want to die with regrets, so I'm just gonna tell you straight up. But like there was a potential chance they could have played it with like Nico's like okay fine, like I'm Genius Gamer and you're Genius Gamer M. Like beating Kronos is more important than like running out there. So a little self-sacrifice angle. I mean, like I know Japan's super not into that shit, especially after like World War II and all the fucking like restrictions on their media and things like that. And like, yeah, Japan's not super into self-sacrifice in media anymore. But I'm like, it would have been an interesting angle. Uh, Also, like, I mean, Emu would have basically acted the same regardless, but at least it would have been something. The funniest moment, okay, not funniest, but like it was great when like he was like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like cheer up a patient, she might die," and like fucking Dan just goes over. It's like it's fine. When you die, you're just gonna come back as one of us bugsters. It'll be all right. I'm like, that is such a Dan line. It's great. Plus, like, yeah, it's not that terrible. Like, there's nobody who really dies because she's infected. She'll just come back. And Dan actually has slightly better bedside manner than like Hiro and Taiga. So him saying that in like a super nice way, but like saying this really messed up thing was freaking great too.
And it occurred to me that he might have wanted the Buggle driver to use the Game Dance virus to block Kronos' pause ability.
Yeah, for that one, yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like he's borrowing it for that possibility, or he's borrowing it just because like he could chance it and like come up with some backup plan. Like basically, he's just looking for anything that gives him an edge at this point. Like I don't think he even had like a full idea. It's like, all right, if I just have this thing, I could probably think of something. So he's super desperate.
What if he tried to back his data up on the driver? He's done it before.
Yeah, that's what I thought too originally. I'm like, oh, he's taking it so at least some of him will survive because they say, as long as there's a copy or a small part of like a Bugster or whatever, they can always come back like fully formed one. So I'm like, yeah, I was thinking he was gonna use it as his backup, but we'll see.
Oh, but I don't think that. Maybe it was against in case he meant M, because with Kronos, if you die during pause, you can't be revived, whether or not you have backup data. So
that's why I was thinking maybe he was trying to use it to block pause.
Yeah, all right.
But regardless of what his plan was, he didn't quite get that far, but we'll get to that later. For now, Emu confronts Dan about what would happen if he destroyed the Master Gashat for Kamen Rider Chronicle. In other words, if he forced the game to stop, would the patients be cured? Dan doesn't know, but he isn't concerned as Nico's life will be saved as backup data and she can be brought back as a bugster like he and Kiria were. Emu, Kira, and Puppy are not at all happy with that answer, and Emu runs off on his own again. Classic Dan. Doesn't care about lives.
Unless they're his, then it's fine. I mean, seriously though, for emotional reasons, I hated when Dan even considered the notion, because I understand that it is a possibility to do so. Like, we've seen it with them, we've seen it with Saki, albeit less so, but still. But they were all contingencies. Dan was a contingency that he would be able to come back to life if he was ever killed. Saki was a contingency to keep Hiro under Masamune's thumb. Kiria was a contingency to prove that he could do what he could do. And and a contingency against the Bugsters. So, but Nico, that's just level ground. It's not a. I understand it's a backup. So, and knowing Dan, again, he's not going to care about lives. He's only going to care about the bottom line, which is beating his dad. But still, I mean, Nico's somebody who has connections with everybody. Same with Kitty, but less so because we had less time with him. So, on an emotional scale, it makes sense for Dan's character, but I still hated it. So, yeah, but it does fit, so I'll let it slide.
I mean, maybe Dan was being a real asshole, or maybe he was kind of being genuine because, like, originally he did infect, like, was it his mom, to try to save her. Like, he didn't expect her to turn into Poppy, right? Like, go ahead, King.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So, like, maybe he was being genuine. It's like, it's fine, you won't die because the system saves lives. Plus, like, all the ride players who are dead, like, if Nico couldn't come back, they can't come back, which means, like, doing anything that Kronos says makes no sense. As for, like, sacrificing life, yeah, I'm like, that's kind of harsh, but I'm like, it just goes down to, like, personal choice. Like if you're like, oh, Zero, you're gonna die from this virus, or, we have to go do what Kronos says. I'm like, fuck that. Like, at least I could come back as a Bugster. I'd take that over doing what the fuck Kronos just asked for.
Emu confronts Peridot, knowing that he's afraid of Kronos. Emu tells him the story of the time he was afraid of death. 16 or 17 years ago, Emu was hit by a car and needed an emergency surgery. During that time, he was seriously afraid that he would die. Emu tells Peridot that he's ready to settle their score, and the two of them henshin and fight. So this, way back at the beginning of the series, there was that whole mystery of that Kiryu was investigating, like, hey, why did Emu need a surgery 16 years ago? Is there something secret hidden there? And it never really got brought up again after a certain point. Emu was hit by a car, it turns out.
I mean, we know he got hit by a car in the first episode. You see that?
Oh, that was him?
Yeah, it's the little kid.
Oh man, I always thought that was just a random little kid.
No, it's him. Yeah, it's kind of weird to tie it all into, like, oh no, Peridot caused him to become super sick and get into the accident. I'm like, was that necessary? Like, what? Am I supposed to hate Peridot even more? I'm like, dude, like, Kronos is clearly a bigger threat. As for, like, oh shit, like, Peridot's evil, I'm like, he's a fucking virus. Like, he wasn't sentient. It doesn't give two shits. It's just going to do what a virus does. And, like, if we're gonna go all about, like, oh no, Peridot, he's so evil, I'm like, we have Dan palling around with us with no problem, right? Did we forget that asshole? Like, he's the root cause of all this.
Yeah, they're
right?
making him try to fix it by helping them.
Yeah, but, like, if we're gonna blame Peridot for, like, getting him into that accident, we should blame Dan also, because Dan infected him.
I don't think it was entirely meant to blame Peridot, just,
I know, just highlight it, but it was, like, so unnecessary.
I saw it as a sort of full circle thing, because, like, we know from that surgery as a kid, that's where he got his bigger interest in video games, where he wanted to become a doctor. So the fact that the virus in him, and technically speaking, Pallid, was the whole reason the crash happened, the surgery happened, so on and so forth, I saw it as a sort of full circle thing. And in a way, it does connect to Pallid, because at the time they were both terrified of death. And remember, Pallid hadn't matured at that time yet. So if M had died, so would have Pallid.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe he just had the save data, which is weird because like M is not. Fuck it, Peridot's weird because he's the original and M was still alive. So like it's sort of the save data thing. It's also probably because he took that like refusion thing and maybe he has more human DNA in him, which is messing him up even more. The other problem is like, okay, if Dan already infected him and then he got into an accident and then he met the doctor and became more into games, it makes less sense. Because like he would have had to send that letter to Dan before he got into that accident, which means it's before he met the doctor.
That's why I say bigger interest. He already had one, but this basically was the tipping point for him.
Yeah, but he was such a big. He was so into games that he fucking played them constantly, made his own, and emailed freaking or not email, sent like fan mail to Dan.
That was just
You know?
him being a kid and playing with his imagination.
Yeah. I know. Which, fair enough. It's just one of those things where it's like this wasn't necessary because like it would have made more sense where it's like he got into the accident, he didn't have the Bugster virus. Like once he recovered, then he got the Bugster virus because it's like oh, then he got like the second wind of being super into games. But who cares? I don't know. I just think that whole sequence was super unnecessary. Anyway, let's keep going.
Okay. Ex-Aid's Hyper Muteki form easily overpowers Paradox's perfect knockout. Realizing his defeat, Paradox attempts to teleport away, but Ex-Aid grabs onto him before he can. Dan and Puppy show up to see Ex-Aid getting ready to finish Paradox off. Dan tries to talk him into not doing it, as he'll lose his ability to henshin if he does, and tells him that destroying the Master Gashet will cure the patients. But Ex-Aid proceeds with the Rider Kick against Paradox, who tries to counterpunch it, but fails. Prado begins vanishing and starts crying for his life. Ex-Aid exclaims, "I win," as he thrusts his hand into Parado's body, and it vanishes. Ex-Aid's henshin disappears, leaving just Emu. Episode end. So when Dan says, okay, the destroying it will cure the patients, are you satisfied? I don't really believe him. I think he's just desperately trying to get Emu to not kill Paradox.
Yeah, I think he's lying, but the thing is, it could be he's telling the truth, but he's not sure. But considering it's a writer show, that's probably going to be the cure.
I think he said in the beginning he didn't know was a lie because he didn't think M would take it that far. Because he knows M at least well enough to believe that he wouldn't have gone as far as to get rid of their one chance and kill Pallid.
Well, maybe it's like M0 said, where he said, I don't know, because he just isn't sure that it will work because he hasn't tried.
Yeah, but it is a possibility. Maybe he said that because he thinks it's a possibility it could be the truth. He just didn't think it was certain enough. I could be just pulling this out of thin air, but...
I mean, considering it's a writer show, that's probably what it's going to be. They're not going to build like 2 arcs of, oh shit, we have to finish this stupid Kamen Rider Chronicle to possibly bring people back to be like, oh no, fuck it, nobody's coming back. I'm like, that'd be one hell of a twist, but it'd be super underwhelming at this point.
Mm-hmm. But oh my god, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think this episode finally... Oh, Pallid wasn't the only one to make a flip this time, because he really matured this episode, I think, because in the beginning he was joking, he was laughing around with Nico, but now he's basically had enough of this bullshit. He's not going to be satisfied until he's finished with this game. And when he grabbed Pallid and said, you have to get the ending you deserve, again, I like the full circle thing because those were the exact same words Pallet said to Dan as he killed him. And Dan was right there, so nice touch on their half. Pallet just vanishing right before his eyes. I like that they kept that hidden in the preview. They didn't show the effects until later. And Pallet just screaming and begging for his life. And then when he finally goes under those waters and just gives in, I think was just an incredible touch from his actor. Amazing. And I really don't know what they're going to be able to do now because it seems like we're kind of screwed over at this point. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, this could be just subbing differences, but like in the one I watched, where it's like, this is, I'm gonna show you what an ending befitting of a loser, which is like what Peridot fucking told him, and like Dan, and so I'm like, holy fuck, man! Like, did Emu like get super infected with the Bugster, or is he the villain now? Because like the way he was as this episode went on, I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is like the anti-Blade of like, you've just become the villain now to beat the villain. I'm like, I don't fucking like this. Like, this is not how a writer should do shit. Um, I mean, yeah, it's very classical, like just beat the bad guy no matter what. But I'm like, we haven't been that Showa in One Note in a long time. So I'm not super cool. That's what I keep saying. That it's like it's the anti-Blade, where like, you know, Palette basically is Chalice at this point, and like Emu just chose to fucking like end Chalice right there. And I'm like, we pretty much know what happened when that went down, you know, Blade's movie, because you know everything was super great when that happened, right? Like,
Actually, everything was super fine. I don't
Yeah,
know what you're
yeah.
getting at here. Everything worked out really well.
Really well, huh?
I would say so.
What the fuck? Like the whole team broke apart. What the fuck are you talking about?
They all moved on their separate ways because their job was done.
What bullshit? They became like terrible people, like all of. Dude, they like go into Kotaro's house because he's rich and an asshole, and like start stealing shit at one point. I know it's because like, oh, they think they deserve something because like, you know, Kotaro wrote their story and he's famous and rich now, and like, but I'm like, that's sort of showing the wrongness of that reality where it's like even the heroes have just turned into like, well, the ends justify the means kind of people. I'm like, fuck this. This is not right. And that's basically what that movie is. It's like, this is the fucked up ending. This should not have happened. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I felt really bad for Peridot. Because, like, before, he's like, I was not made to be, like, you know, basically to be killed by humans. Like, this is my game to be the protagonist. So it's sort of like, basically because, like, the Bugsters, if, you know, more of the humans who died get revived, they'll be Bugsters. Which means they're a subspecies now, and like they're just saying, basically they're kind of like the replicants from Blade Runner, or I mean, I would say the Roymute from Drive, but you haven't seen Drive, right? So you wouldn't get it. But basically, yeah, like they're a whole new species, and like their purpose is just to get killed, and that's kind of fucked up, man. And especially like the way Emu kind of like carries it out. I'm like, you just turned into like a stone cold killer. Like I'm pretty sure what the way next week's preview goes that like it's a fake out, and I'd be okay with that. But if it's not a fake out, then like fuck this episode.
I'm very sure it's a fake out. When Emu thrusts his hand into Parado, and then he disappears, he like kind of there's this one sparkling light that really sticks out in his hand that he kind of clasps onto.
I saw that too. I was like, that's an interesting thing. But
I think I think he may have absorbed Peridot at that time because that's also the exact moment that he vanishes. So I think he's still alive and that he's going to pretend that he can't transform to get the clear token and then be like, surprise, bitch.
Maybe, but I mean,
But
even if
also the yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that we know Dan's not gonna hold up his end of the bargain, especially considering the fact that he's going to kill the rest of them.
Then
Yeah,
why
Mafia.
should Emu?
Right, exactly. Also, like, the thing is, like, Poppy gave her clear token and she didn't die. So, like, there was no reason Peridot had to die or even
Well,
fake being dead to get his
Our
token.
game had different rules.
Yeah.
Though. You didn't have to kill her to win.
Dude, we have the game master right there. He could just reprogram the fucking rules on the fly.
yeah, I'm wondering why Dan hasn't done that already if he can do that.
Also, if that doesn't work, we have level 99, right? It took away Motors' bike. That's his whole gimmick, is he's a fucking, biker guy. And, like, if you can reprogram somebody's game that much and a bugster that, like, fundamentally, like, I'm pretty sure you can make Peridot be able to give his damn game, like, his clear token a lot easier. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Peridot is also 2 games. Perfect Knockout and Knockout Fighter and Perfect Puzzle. So maybe if they just kind of like beat him at a puzzle game, that would count.
But
Yeah,
then
yeah,
he wouldn't get the other one. It
Well-
has to be both games in order for it to.
Just straight up killing him would only be clearing Perfect Knockout, though.
Yeah. Also, like, yeah, because it could just be a double token.
It's
So,
like,
like, you beat one of them and both of them come out. Yeah,
choose
it
your
could work.
destiny.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, if this is not a fake out, it's probably a fake out. But if it's not a fake out, it's like this is like the second or third episode in a row that everybody's acted super stupid, and I'm getting real ticked off because this show's better than this, and like this is not okay.
I'm pretty sure it's just to pad the runtime to make the series longer.
I wouldn't be so sure about the runtime. But that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, build is gonna start late. Like it's gonna be September, so Ex-Aid's probably gonna get like a full 50.
I don't know for certain, but I've heard rumors like Ex-Aid might not be for very much longer. Like I've heard some people say it's only going to be like 6 more episodes.
No.
Well, actually, if build is starting in September, then about 6 more episodes would be right. But it feels really weird if we jump into the final arc at this point with what just happened.
See, if we only have 6 more episodes, we should have killed Kronos by now. Because then it would have had like 2 for Kronos, 2 for fucking Peridot, 2 for Graphite. It would have been done.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but
I'm inclined to agree.
So like this padding makes no sense.
I feel
I'm
like
trying to see how it makes point from a marketing perspective too.
unless they
Sorry,
plan
go
to
ahead.
do a pretty short final arc, like 3 or 4 episodes instead of 5 to 6.
Yeah. If the only way that's gonna go down is like Kronos is the final boss and like Peridot and Graphite are gonna become good.
I kind of hope Kronos isn't the final boss.
Yeah, he sucks ass. I
You're
mean, like
hoping for Gambus then?
maybe yeah, Game DS and like maybe no. Yeah,
Game
Graphite.
Days should be like the final monster battle.
That's what I'm saying. Like maybe Graphite finally succumbs to it, and then we have to take him down because we have no other choice, which is still bullshit. Because we have the Master Gashat to the game, right? Like if you take out Kronos, we can just end this stupid game before it even gets to that. So it makes no sense. Whatever.
Alright. Thanks for joining us this week, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Later, daters.
Good night, everyone. See you next time.